Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to my channel. My name is Jasmina from Jasmina Brozovic Astrology. And today I have two special astrology friends with me, and we're going to chat about upcoming Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. But before we dig in more depth, what is Mercury Sagittarius? What can we expect from this one particularly? I want to say hi to my friends Diana and Jay. Hi, my friends. Diana, please tell us something more. Maybe you remember Diana from, we had a Venus Karma video. You can check it up on my YouTube channel as well. But Diana, please, hi, how are you? Please introduce yourself in a few sentences. Where are you coming from? What is your astrology work and practice? And what do you do? What do you do?
So thank you for that lovely intro. My name is Diana Vanessa. I am from the DC metropolitan area. I'm trying to talk very slowly so my nerves don't get the better of me, but I am a counseling astrologer. I do a lot of work around eighth house issues. As I've been, I know we're not talking directly about Saturn today, but I've been getting a lot of clarity around my astrology career and the kind of work I do as an astrologer. So I'm moving in the counseling path, and I am just super excited to be here and talking to you guys about Mercury and Sagittarius. I am having the best weekend because my kid just won his football championship yesterday. And so I'm just like so geeked and so excited to be here. And I hope I gave you everything you just asked me for.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking your time. I know, with family obligations, it can be a struggle sometimes. So thank you for taking the time to do this. I'm very excited. And hello, Jay. How are you today? Tell us more about where can we find you and everything.
Hey, thank you so much for having me and for a nice little introduction. Diana, I'm going to need you to send me some of that Saturnian clarity so I can figure things out too. I need a little bit of it. I don't know.
I will do my best.
Especially with like Mars being in such difficult placement for so long recently, and now Mercury, it's like one after the other. But yeah, some people might recognize me from, I also have a YouTube channel, Jasmin's Astrology, but you can call me Jay. And yeah, I just do like weekly forecasts. That's kind of where I'm at with my astrology right now. I study Hellenistic astrology, and I'm a Scorpio sun, Scorpio rising. So I might come off a little tough, a little intimidating, but then once you get to know my Cancer moon, it's all hugs and tears and love.
Yeah, you are very, very kind. If you guys didn't check out her channel, please go. I put this in the description below a link. Beautiful videos with other people and chats. And when I was a guest at Jay's channel, I felt so at home, so comfortable. Like it was very nurturing environment. So thank you again for that. That was really beautiful. So check that out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've had both you guys on my channel. It was very
yeah,
fun. Awesome conversations with both of you. And
yeah.
I'll just make a note that I do use they, them pronouns, gender neutral terms. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. Yes, thank you
Yeah.
very much. Okay, so let's start with seeing what is a Mercury in general. What does Mercury represent, and especially Mercury in Sagittarius? So, Diana, would you like to take like a few words? What does Mercury in Sagittarius represents for you?
So, Mercury, I like to, when I talk to clients and friends, I like to try to help them understand it the way that I'm learning it as an astrologer. And so I look at what Mercury represents as a mirror for us. And it really is in my life showing up as the planet of energy of messages, communication, transportation, what I do for business and how I make money, my
Mhm.
siblings. So those are the typical significations of Mercury. Um, and when Mercury is in Sagittarius, or how it's coming up for me, is it seems to be coming up a lot in terms of, yeah, just the ways I communicate, and also in a larger respect, sort of my evolving belief system or the
Mhm.
vision that I have for my life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Before I give the word to Jay, I just want to mention that Mercury is usually not comfortable in Sagittarius because it rules Gemini, the opposite sign. so have that in mind when you think about Mercury in Sagittarius. It's more about a bigger picture, expanding your mind. It's about, seeing things bigger in a bigger way. So Jay, what would you like to add for Mercury in Sagittarius?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make sure we focus on the fact that like Mercury doesn't love being in Sagittarius, but I've been trying to think about like that condition aspect of things and like what then can we do with that? So it's like more about breaking away from the data and the details and the fine print and like the nitty gritty that Mercury really loves to be in, and like stepping back and seeing that bigger picture, and like maybe also taking not only Mercury's retrograde, but Mercury's time in Sagittarius as like an opportunity to rethink those bigger beliefs, those bigger pictures, shift the mindset, re-examine philosophies and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Mercury is very like, it's the data, it's the details, it's the fine print that everybody skips and just goes, yeah, I agree. That's Mercury.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, in Sagittarius, I always also think that it's about, being enthusiastic about our dreams and visions. Where is that inner, kind of a spark? It is a fiery Mercury, so that it has that inner spark that leads us to see, to explore, to see beyond. So think about that when you think about Mercury Sagittarius, especially now retrograde. To revise, retrogrades are revision. So, but we're going to come to retrograde later. I was gonna actually mention now that we can start talking about Mercury retrograde in general, but I want to say hi to Miss Behaving. She's my biggest fan. Hi, nice to see you. She says she has Sagittarius Sun and Moon, and soon she has her birthday. Well, happy soon to have birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah, that's going to be just the day after the Mercury goes retrograde. So I just want to mention the dates. So Mercury is going to go retrograde on November 25th, and it's going to be retrograde until January 2nd. And it started the retrograde shadow on the November 7th. Oh, no, sorry. It's going to go direct December 15th, the shadow
Yes.
January 2nd. Thank you, Jay. Yes, this is my Gemini brain, like just stepping ahead. So
that's okay. We are invoking Mercury and it's retrograde, so
yes.
This is going to happen.
Yeah. So to repeat, November 25th to December 15th, shadow started November 7th, and then it's going to end January 2nd. So Jay, you can then maybe start on this retrograde motion. What does the retrograde mean? Yeah, go ahead, Diana.
Stop for a second. Can we also just make sure we explain what the retrograde shadow means? Because that question has come up a lot.
Sure. Jay, do you want to take it?
Sure. So basically, like as of November 7th, as Jasmina mentioned, Mercury had already reached the degree that it will retrograde back to. And so basically, like as of November 7th, or once you enter the retro shade, it's kind of like up until that point, or that's the point where you might want to start thinking about the topics and the weird things that are coming up, or the miscommunications. These are from that point on, basically, things are up for revisiting, up for revising, up for redoing. And then, as Jasmina said, until January 2nd is when Mercury will clear the retrograde degrees.
Yeah. So what I mentioned in this particular case, the shadow started at 6 degrees Sagittarius, and it's going to go retrograde on the 22 degrees. So, and then it's going to go back to the 6. So that means between the 6 and 22 degrees, if you have anything, any planets at those degrees of Sagittarius or other mutable signs, we can go to that further later. It's going to be more affected, more personal to you and stuff like that. So that's what it means. It's going to go back from those, as Jay explained nicely. Okay, so you already mentioned revising and everything. Diana, do you please want to share what is retrograde for you? What does it mean, especially when Mercury goes retrograde?
So, yeah, when Mercury goes retrograde, it's actually like a big deal for me. And I've been feeling that as I've sort of been trying to understand how these transits impact my own chart and my life. I've noticed that as a Gemini rising, because Gemini is governed by Mercury, that I do see themes around pauses taking place. things slowing down. There have been opportunities to review things. Like right now, any contracts that are coming through, I'm like, I need to slow down and take a look at them because I have Mercury in my seventh house by transit. So Sagittarius is my seventh
Mm-hmm.
house in my chart, which has a lot to do with contracts
Yeah.
and the significant relationships. So what I'm seeing is, yeah, I'm definitely seeing a slowdown. I'm also seeing a return to relationships and significant friendships
Mm.
in my life. For example, I just recently reconnected with a large group of colleagues who I grew up with as a lawyer. And I mean, it literally felt like I was revisiting family again. And I,
Mm.
after having come back, after having been gone for a long time, and I was like, how wonderful is astrology that like Sagittarius is all about the energy of like the sage, the wanderer, someone who comes back after going on like a long sojourn somewhere. And so that's what it felt like for me. So, especially with respect to like the relationships and significant people who have been really important to me, that's been part of the story. Contracts and people.
Yeah. So Jay, what would you? That's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Jay, what do you think? Because Diana just mentioned there is a difference between internal retrograde Mercury processes and then external events, as she mentioned. Reconnecting with somebody. So how do you see this difference of retrograde Mercury manifesting internally and externally?
I think that's probably different for everybody, right? And
Mhm.
I love that Diana mentioned having the Gemini rising because I think that that's definitely going to mean that Mercury retrograde has a bigger impact on you because it's, the first house, the self. I mean, it's so directly linked with you. So yeah, the internal and the external. I mean, for sure, like externally, we might see things like delays with travel, or
Mm.
especially around with Mercury retrograde happening around this time of year,
Yeah.
shopping and shipping and all this holiday stuff, I think is going to be maybe really messy. Here in Canada, Canada Post just
Yeah.
went on strike, which
Yeah.
is like
For
just
holidays.
kind of blowing my mind that it's
I know.
happening so close to a Mercury retrograde. But yeah, so I mean, like externally thinking about
Mm.
working more time into your schedule, giving yourself that extra padding room. But then, yeah, internally, depending on where it's happening in your chart, you're maybe rethinking certain relationships, rethinking, like I said already with Sagittarius in general, beliefs, reorganizing certain things. I think it happens on both sides,
Yeah.
no matter what, but kind of maybe on a different scale depending where it is happening in your chart.
Yeah.
Last year when Mercury was retrograde in Sagittarius, I actually it's my second house, and I had a bank account just closed down without any word from me.
Wow.
I didn't put in any paperwork. I didn't ask for it to get closed. It just shut down. And I let it be and dealt with it after the retrograde because I was like, I feel like
Smart.
deal with it later.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of, for this particular one, I'm also kind of concerned for people who are traveling for Christmas to see family. And, Mercury is about long distance travel. If literally, if you're traveling outside of your city, of your, a local community, it can be lots of issues. And, people who need maybe visas, or like, stuff like that, like paperwork around going somewhere, it can also be. So just prepared, everybody who is traveling, to have some hiccups on the way. Yeah,
Yeah,
Diana, please go ahead.
I'd like to offer a silver lining.
Yeah.
Mhm. Of
Given that
course.
we're anticipating travel delays, it may be that you end up not having to see family who you're having significant communication issues with, right? Like I keep seeing like these memes around, typical conversations at, Thanksgiving in the US with respect to our view at the politics. So, like
Oh, yeah.
I always try to look for a silver lining in everything. And when you said that, I was just like, you know what? Hallelujah. You may not be able to go see some family. It
Yeah.
might turn out to be a good thing for some of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I have in my notes that this coincides with American Thanksgiving and how messy that could be, especially
Yeah.
Sagittarius. It's this like loud, bold,
Mhm.
expressive fire sign, and the kinds of conversations that might be happening. But yeah, hopefully you just might not have to go.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think about Sagittarius, especially Mercury in Sagittarius, people being very blunt and direct,
Yeah.
like no tact at all. Like
Yeah.
there's no consideration about what other people think or what they believe in. It's just, because in a lower frequency, Sagittarius can be about, my truth, my belief is the only one, which we know it's usually not the case. Nothing, everything is black and white, but that's how, so I feel that actually this retrograde can also, as you guys, both of you mentioned, it's really interesting that we can have an opportunity to slow down our everyday pace of life and rethink, like literally rethink, what do I believe, based on what? Was it maybe something that was that I brought up from my childhood, from my parents, from the society, or is it my belief system? So I think it's a great opportunity to actually revise and rethink. Did you inherit these beliefs, or are they really yours?
Yeah.
What do you guys think on that?
Oh,
Any
yeah.
thoughts?
Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, I guess another silver lining of sorts for Mercury retrogrades is that, like, yes, it can be frustrating and it can slow down the pace of things and even reverse things, right? But it is also like, how often do we get just like cosmic second chances around things? Like it is just an invitation to be like, maybe I didn't want to do that. Maybe I want to go this way. So, yeah, thinking about it in that way.
I like that.
I love that too. I was thinking about, we're going to talk a little bit later about how, the tense energy with Jupiter and Gemini, and then also Saturn and Pisces, and how that's sort of inviting us to really, I keep saying cut my losses, or really, like, I think refine, really be clear about what it is I believe now. I've been having a lot of questions coming around my personal belief system, which has evolved a lot, especially over the last 4 years since that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that's coming back into play right now. And the question has been very loud for me, like, what do you believe? Like, and I feel like this is going to be more, I feel like I'm already seeing opportunities to clarify my beliefs and be clear to others about what my boundaries are when it comes to faith and when it comes to spirituality and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned this aspects that are coming up. So we're going to have a Jupiter opposition with Mercury before he goes retrograde on November 18th, but then it's going to go again on the December 4th and December 26th. So Jay, what do you feel? Because Jupiter, they're like in a mutual reception kind of a thing, but they're not at home. So what do you feel? What is this about?
It's more like a mutual deception.
I love this.
It's like, but it is kind of nice because, neither Jupiter and Gemini nor Mercury and Sagittarius are at their best, but it's almost like they can have each other's back in a way too. It's like, well, at least we're in this together. Like there is some level of support, but it might be, I don't know, it might be support for the wrong things. I think we'll just want to be like wary of certain things. But, it's interesting, like the Jupiter the Sagittarius and Gemini axis is like, it's so hot right now. Like Sagittarius season is coming up, Sag new moon, Gemini full moon, Jupiter's retrograde in Gemini, Mercury's going to be retrograde in Sagittarius. There's just pay attention to those houses in your chart, because like everything I just think is up for revisiting, rethinking, revising, all of those Mercury retrograde redo sort of things. I'll admit I forgot the question because I went Sagittarius big picture with that. My apologies.
No, you answered the question. I was talking about what is the dynamic, because they're not kind of at home, so they're doing opposite. I would say, Jupiter in Gemini, it's all about it's information and news, but out of proportion. There's no boundaries, so it's lots of fake news, lots of things not being truth. Where is the source? Where are they coming from? And the Mercury Sagittarius is then a big storyteller. It can be the biggest fisherman. I caught the biggest fish, and then you kind of it's like that, stories that you want to make it better, sound better than it is. So there's a lot of things going on. So I was thinking, what is the advice to give people, because you have to be very discerning now with this energies next couple of months. Very, what you hear, what you take for granted. Yeah.
trust you. I mean, I say this all the time. I was like, we have to do our diligence on the information we're receiving, and that's what Jupiter and Gemini is here. It's like, here's this big buffet platter. You want to learn if this is real? That's what the mutual reception between Mercury and Jupiter is saying to me. It's sort of like, I'm in your house, you're in my house. We're gonna respect each other's space, but here's how we help each other. Here, Jupiter saying, Mercury, you're seeing my vision, right? Mercury is giving Jupiter all these details and information, right? And so we have an opportunity to actually diligence what we're seeing and hearing. I think the question is, do we actually take advantage of that opportunity to make sure that we understand like what we're getting ourselves into?
Right.
So that's what I'm feeling with that.
Right. And so maybe it's like we do all of that work right now and we don't actually take that step or make that big decision until we're clear of the retrograde. Or even like when we're at that what's the final Jupiter Mercury opposition? It's sometime in December.
Yeah, 26th, just for Boxing Day.
Right. Yeah. So just kind of understanding that timeline and not rushing through anything. Like there is no rush, basically.
Right. Don't commit to anything. Like I'm trying not to commit to things that are hitting my inbox or people who are making promises or, sort of putting a little pressure. Oh, I got to talk to you tomorrow sort of deal. Like, okay, no, I know what this is. Let me just, make sure this is legit before I tell you that I'm going to, do anything in particular.
Yeah, you're right. I told a bunch of people, let's talk after New Year's and let's make some better plans. I don't even want to, yes, okay, we kind of have this conversation going, but let's continue after New Year's just because it could be misunderstood, not heard. Mercury sometimes doesn't hear, but it's, doesn't know how to listen, especially Sagittarius. I feel that they have maybe a problem to listen to the other side. So, just have, I would suggest to maybe use this more internally to revise, as you guys said, your beliefs and everything, not making any decisions or New Year's resolutions. I wouldn't do it until a little bit later. And what about Saturn then? We have 3 squares happening with Saturn. One already happened on the 12th of November. Then we have December 6th and December 27th. So just after this opposition to Jupiter, then we have a square to Saturn right away. What do you feel, Jay?
I think this is tough because I think the square with Saturn almost comes in and like brings a different energy of making us feel almost a pressure to make a decision, or like that any decision we make is going to hold so much consequence and so much weight. And so just, being aware that maybe that's coming from a place that is important, but doesn't need our full attention right now. And like, just trying to navigate that weight, I guess, as best as possible. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I was trying to think about it from, I think what I said before about just sort of making sure we're coming correct with what we're doing is, I'm hearing that in what you're saying, Jay.
Yeah.
I'm going to just stop there for now because my brain just went off.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm thinking, when with Saturn and Mercury together, it can be literally not feeling heard, like, or stuck with an idea. You can be like stuck with this idea and you want to, and you can't move from it. So that's also is giving this like more heaviness on all this Mercury Sag in the first place, right? So opening our minds in a way, I think it's going to be harder than usual for because what do you feel?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, like, all of this big picture energy that we're talking about, or rethinking philosophies and understanding things, or having those bigger visions that, we want to be doing the due diligence around and waiting to take those steps. But then Saturn is almost like a reality check too, of like, do you have time for that? Do you have resources for that? What's the priority? What's the sequencing of what you can actually do?
This hits me personally.
Something popped in. It was like beliefs and borders. So there
That's
we're
good.
looking at with again, because Mercury Saturn, there's a lot around like our belief systems again. So it's such a big, like it's screaming loudly, but also the flexibility of our beliefs, right? Like how much are we willing to sort of make, bend things so that they work or fit within the framework of what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Saturn is also fear. So maybe a fear to admit what do we really believe
Oh,
in,
wow. Yeah.
right? And just going the comfort zone easier way instead of just facing it and saying, look, and then fighting for it.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it
That's
go
a
ahead.
really good point. No, I was just going to say that's a really
Yeah.
great point. Yeah.
Because with Saturn, it's if you stay in your comfort zone, Saturn doesn't like it. Saturn doesn't really like it. So you need to kind of, anyway, it was just a thought. I want to talk about something else
Yeah.
now. Jay made a good point when we discussed this earlier about the midpoint of this Mercury retrograde, which is a halfway point, is going to happen literally on a Kazimi, when Sun and Mercury are going to be together on December 5th. Yes, go ahead, Diana, please.
Oh no, I was just tapping my
Okay. So this is very interesting because I think Mars is going retrograde at that time as well. So we have this packed day. Jay, what do you think? What is this halfway point at this Kazimi? Because it's another Mercury important day for Mercury when he meets Sun, right?
Yeah, it's a nice little reprieve usually from the retrograde, or it's like, we're not out of the woods yet, but we can start to see the light at the clearing, at the other end. Maybe some of the lessons of the Mercury retrograde start to become clearer. We can start to maybe not take action on anything necessarily, but it's the interpretation process is starting to happen. We're internalizing things, we're integrating. It is just like this moment or sometimes a day of like, oh, okay, that makes sense now, or like, these light bulb moments. So I always like to keep a little notebook handy, or like the notes app on my phone or something, just to see what comes through. And then like I don't really act on any of it, I wait, but it's there.
I like that. Before I go to Diana, to you, I just want to say hi to Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to see you. So, Diana, what do you think about this Kazimi halfway point?
I think Jay always turns on a light in my mind. So with that, with Mercury and the Sun coming together in that refresh or that renewal moment, I'm thinking around December 5th is definitely, like Jay's saying, is going to be a time for that vision to coalesce, the bright ideas to sort of come in, but you may not necessarily, the idea will be there, but you can act on it once the retrograde is over, close to being over. So I'm definitely getting that, and then with Mars also getting Mars, which represents our impulse, our drive, our will to act, going into retrograde, slowing down. So it's sort of like the vision comes in and then Mars is going retrograde. So it's like, here's the opportunity to get that drive, that impulse, to get the sort of mojo going, to make that push when Mars completes its retrograde, which I believe is April?
84 years from now.
Yeah, I know. It's a long time, but I feel like we need that time for the re-up, for the, for like that motivation and that courage and that creative like fire to like really, really make yourself roar. So
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I mean, it again, it can be frustrating. It can be really aggravating to have to like slow your roll on something, but it is also just like, take a breath. We don't always have to be productive and producing. We can, live and be.
that's so hard for me, but I feel you.
Oh, agreed. I have to take my own advice.
I was just going to say, tell it to the Capricorn, right? It's also, I feel that, I think this, especially this Mercury retrograde, with all that we mentioned, is actually a great opportunity for all of us to learn something, literally learn.
Yes.
And then, as Jay mentioned, make notes on what comes from the new information you gather from something that you learn. Make notes for future actions, because Mercury likes to learn. Jupiter also kind of is in Gemini, wants to get it. So just just learn. Don't be biased. Don't be, make an effort to actually explore and research and learn something. I would say that would be like my number one advice for everybody. It doesn't matter if it's in your relationship, how to learn about your relationships, or what do you want, what do you need, or if it's in your money, what are your values. Just learn about it more, or rethink it, or right. And okay, go ahead.
I totally agree, but I think it'll also be important to find ways to rest the brain as well, because I feel like the Gemini Sagittarius axis can be really mentally stimulating. And I mean, I think there is inherent signatures here of like, let's learn, like, yes, like you're saying, for sure. But then also when it's time to turn the brain off and relax.
Thanks for the reminder, because my Gemini brain with Virgo rising is just like, what are you talking about? How can I rest my brain?
Yeah, I mean, the people that have Virgo and Gemini in such prominent placements, I mean, like it's got to be so much more difficult. I feel for y'all.
I'm trying to, but my brain is doing. I'm trying to narrow it down and just learn two things, not five.
Yes.
So that's my kind of compromise with this. Like, I'm not going to go 5 ways. I'm going to just go 2 ways, and then which is also hard for me. Trust me.
But I think that's so good though too, especially, I mean, I think that's a great use of Jupiter and Gemini, is like picking multiple things, but being able to go deeper with them, Yeah,
but only 2. Don't go more than 2. It's Gemini, just 2. Yeah.
I was about to say, I always remember your advice for Jupiter and Gemini. Try to focus on no more than 2 things.
Yeah.
For me, I would say I didn't drop my placements at the beginning.
Yes, please.
Capricorn Sun, Virgo Moon, and Gemini Rising, and so my mutable placements I also have outer planets in Sag in my chart, so all of the mutable energy has been hitting hard. And I'm just thankful for I this is part of my advice when we get to that part, but it's been the Virgo, grounding myself, centering myself, trying to develop better practices around those things have really been, I think, the saving grace for me as far as not going haywire when it comes to like the overload. So yeah, that's been doing it. So thanks for prompting that, because we need to just slow down.
Yeah, that's very good, Jane. I needed to hear that, because when I'm, sometimes I don't hear myself. I give advice to others, and then maybe I can apply this for myself.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to the Mars retrograde story, because Diana mentioned it, and I want to say that he is going retrograde on December 6th, so just one day after the Kazemi, and is going direct on February 23rd. But then the shadow leaves May 2nd. So it's all the end of the April. Yeah, like you said, 84 years from now.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And there's a lot of life that has to happen between now and then, right? So it's sort of like, what do we do?
No, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that back up, because I kept thinking we should say, like, yes, it's a good idea to hold off on big decisions, or like, rethink things, revise things, all that stuff. But you cannot put your life on hold for the next 3 weeks, or for the Mars retrograde either. Like, there are certain things that you just have to do. Don't be afraid to do things. But
for example, I'm going to be like relaunching a program, an astrology program that I did over the summer. And I was just like, I have the Mars retrograde happening in my 3rd house. I'm like, this is an opportunity to redo something that I did a few months ago and just make it better. So that's an example, Jay, of how I'm not going to, sometimes I think we hear Mercury retrograde, you got to pause, stop doing everything, and we think, oh, that life stops. No, I think exactly what you said, and that there's still some things that just need to move, and that we can use this time to just make it better, refresh it, repackage it.
Yes.
I like that.
That's perfect. It's the perfect time for a relaunch.
Yeah. Oh, yes, exactly. Because you already did it. So you kind of, with a better packaging. And it's in Leo. Mars goes retrograde in Leo. So it has to be flashy. It has to be, it has to shine. It has to be, bold. I like that. That's very good. Very good. Both of you mentioned the impact that this is going to have, like on personal placements. Of course, we have Gemini personal placements are mutable, but what else should we think about? So where is in which area of your life is Sagittarius, and then the ruling the ruler two houses where the Gemini rules, right? So it's like have to look at 3 areas of your life. Would you like to say more about it, Jay?
Well, I'm curious actually, as 2 people that have Mercury ruled risings, would you say that it's true that, and I mean, maybe it varies from retrograde to retrograde, but I'm curious, is it like when Mercury is retrograde, let's say in Sagittarius, that's maybe where more of the external stuff is happening, but the internal stuff is more in those Virgo and Gemini houses?
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
That does resonate for me. If I go back to the example I gave you guys before, like the Sagittarius is in my 7th house. And it's showing up externally for me in terms of contracts that have presented themselves.
Right.
People, significant relationships that have shown back up. And then with Jupiter being retrograde in Gemini, I have been doing a lot of introspection around myself, my identity, how I'm packaging myself vis-a-vis my clients. Like, the 1st and the 7th axis of my chart. And so I would say I agree with that. I would say the Mercury, I would say I feel a lot of the internal around sort of how do I communicate who I am and how am I showing up. And then the external are the sort of the contracts, the people that are showing up in my 7th.
Yeah. I feel that I agree 100% that it's more internal, and just because I kind of feel that I need this retrograde to slow down my mind. Like I feel like I need it, and I need it 3 times a year, because I always say Mercury is not retrograde 3 times a year for no reason. It has because our mind is working all the time, especially with our Gemini Virgos, but for everybody. So having this time to pause and to rethink, it's very important. At least 3 every quarter. You know how when you do budgets in a company, you have like quarterly budget. This is like the same thing. You have like a quarterly rethinking of where you're going with your thoughts, where you're going with your ideas. You have to discard some. All these lists. I have like a list of ideas, and I have revised them and just not at this time, maybe later, maybe never. I kind of have a revision of them, like a to-do list in a Virgo way. Because every time I have an idea, I write it down. Then I look at that list. I'm like, oh my god, I'm never gonna, like, if I live 3 lives, I'm never gonna be able to do it. Like it's just So what is important at this time? What is it? What's gonna make me feel better or fulfilled or more happy? So in that sense, I'm literally doing Virgo during my Mercury retrogrades and just revising, especially my thoughts and my ideas. So that's kind of what I feel. So in Sagittarius house, I'm thinking it depends on the system. Whole sign is 4th, quadrant is 3rd. Well, I have a kid, so there's always something happening, learning with him, from him. So, when you have a small kid, it's ongoing process of revising things. But it's interesting to see, what's happening around your life. I have no example for our external things. Although if you look at a quadrant system in the 3rd house, I'm going to see an uncle next weekend, just before the retrograde, that I didn't see for like 15 years. So that's an interesting thing, like extended family, 3rd house.
Yep.
There's some family situations that's come up, which is not for this channel, but it's funny. So like stuff like that. So that's interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Well, in the past, I have found that so was it last year and maybe the year before, Mercury was retrograde in Virgo. And I went into that sort of thinking like, well, that'll be almost better because Mercury is so happy in Virgo. So it'll be able to handle itself. But really, in the end, it was probably the worst retrogrades for me because Mercury had no other planet to kind of look to for any help. Like it was just all on Mercury. And that was like the most day-to-day internal, like just mistakes here, bloopers there, miscommunication here. It was constant. Whereas like last year with the Sagittarius one, it was like that one big weird thing with the bank, that one like big Jupiter weird thing. And that was it. And it was annoying, but like, yeah.
That's so interesting. I know. I for all Mercury retrogrades, and especially for the Sagittarius one, double check your emails, double check your spelling, and then this is something that I tell myself the most. Trust me, uh, because I'm very fast and I don't reread what I write sometimes because I want to multitasking and stuff. So it's really important to slow down because it can be misunderstood or it can be it can give you in trouble. It can really get you in trouble. It can be inappropriate. I have
Yeah.
to mention this story before you go. Instead of ADD add, please add this to the sheet. I put ASS, which was D and S are right to each other, and I send it. So it wasn't pleasant. Anyway, Diana.
I'm so sorry. Oh, that's not good. Oh, I feel you 100%.
See,
And my Virgo moon hates a typo. Like, I get so worked up because this is why I have to ground and center myself. I would have literally like lost it. Um, that was pre, you know, earth loving self Diana time. But I was wow. I'm sorry, going for a loop right there. I
I know
really
it's okay.
like,
I'm sorry. I had I was talking about
oh yeah. No,
miscommunication and emails. Yes.
I have to. One of the things I'm making sure I try to pay attention to, because this is in the house of, like, you know, clients. For me, is like, just, you know, I really really see the potential in everyone. So I realize I have to sort of draw back and be careful about the advice that I'm giving to people, such that,
Mm,
you know, I'm careful about, you know, like when I'm doing readings, that I'm not projecting or, you know,
mhm.
projecting my Pisces idealism on their chart. So one of the things I've made a mental note about is, you know, in my client consultations, really just working with them on their, you know, working with them in the context of their charts and what's actually going on in their lives before I send them off on a goose chase across the country or something crazy like that. I think just giving voice to the fact that we really need to watch out for the bombastic nature of Sagittarius sometimes. Like, you know, come here, come all, and we'll, you know, we'll welcome you all in, when that's not really the reality. So for me, I'm watching that personally with respect to what I say.
Mm.
And so thinking, and also, like you said, what you type.
Very important. Very, very important.
Bombastic.
I'm sorry, was that not the right word? Was that too much for
No, it
Sagittarius?
was a fantastic word, and I was just
Okay.
emphasizing the
Yes.
ASS, even though it's
Ah,
AS,
I
but
get
yeah.
it. You took my brain a little bit with them. That's good.
You reminded me now something as well. Sagittarius is very optimistic, and with Jupiter connections, we can be overly optimistic about our futures and stuff, which is not realistic. So I kind of like this Saturn square at the same time because it's going to keep us
Yeah.
maybe grounded a little bit. Because we can be overly optimistic. Oh yeah, everything is bright and shiny. You know, next year. You know how people end of the year go, next year is going to be the best one ever. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this. I'm going to make it. It's not. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not going to be. You have to have faith and stuff. But I feel we're going to feel overly confident in our ideas, overly confident in, you know. So maybe this retrograde is really really good time to kind of revise. And I like Saturn squaring. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's such an
Mhm.
interesting point, given that we're also entering a Mars retrograde in Leo, which also kind of connects to that like overconfidence, yeah, just very bold nature of things, which it's like, yeah, don't not have the confidence, don't like not believe in yourself, but we can use that Saturn square to kind of come in and give the reality check of like, well, maybe we can take it down from an 11 to like an 8.
Yes.
That's good. That's still above average, but yeah.
Or give it a framework, which Saturn does. Give some ideas
Yeah.
a framework. Just
Yeah.
otherwise, they're going to go all over the place. Just give them some kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Diana, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, same. Keep it real. Try to keep it real. That's what I've been trying to tell myself. I've had Saturn in my 10th house since last March. And again, I like to go big and dream big. I'm like, honey, just keep it real with yourself. Don't overdo it. And just do what you can. I try to focus on what's directly in front of me and use that as sort of my gauge for whether I move on something or not. And I think that having Saturn in my 10th house, opposite my moon, has been very sobering reality for the things that I've been able to accomplish over the last 12 months. And Saturn's not done in Pisces yet. So yeah, I'm using that square to try to keep things in stride, make sure I am being clear about, you know, my what I say, what I do. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, it started squaring my son for the second time, and then the third time I'm having, all the mutables are it's strong mutable charts like mine. It's just I'm hammered with Neptune, with Saturn, but it is what it is, and you kind of take a deep breath and go with it, and it's going to pass. That's what astrology always gives me comfort, because there's a timeline for everything. It's going to pass, and then it's going to be different energy. So I love this. So before we kind of go, I think we are 40 minutes in. Did we miss anything? And do you feel two of you?
I'm almost certain that we did miss something, just given what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But we can't possibly cover it all, so that's
Do you want?
okay.
Okay, do you want to add something before we like a summary or final words, maybe?
I guess what keeps coming back to me is with Sagittarius specifically, we keep talking about how like bold, bombastic, expressive, how messy this might get. I think, the add to ass of it all. I think if there is a blooper, if there is a mistake, maybe just try to own it and like bring some humor to it. Sagittarius is very. I think Sagittarius can be hilarious. It has a good sense of humor. And so I think like instead of getting the ego all tripped out about it, let's just go, yeah, that was my bad, make fun of ourselves. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so happy that you mentioned it. We've got humor. That's so important. That is so important. As Steve Judd, he always says, he has this tagline in all his emails and everywhere. He goes, where there's humor, negativity cannot exist. And I find that this is a good point, and I think we should all have it. Especially it's the season that is coming. We have Sag season coming, as you mentioned, and we have holidays coming. So let's bring some joy and humor into everything. I like that. Diana, what do you say?
So for me, it comes back to Virgo. I keep focusing on the mutable T square with Mercury and Saturn and Jupiter. And I learned in astrology school that when you have a mutable T square, you look for the release point, and the release is in Virgo. And I've been noticing that the details and the support and the sort of the plan for what I need has been coming out of the house in my chart that corresponds to Virgo, which is my fourth house. So, like, for example, this is a Saturn Pisces story. A leaky pipe in one part of the house last fall, beginning of last fall, the detail of that has now turned into an entire bathroom that needs to be replaced. So we're talking about like Saturn in Pisces now going direct, and the story has come out that, I need to replace the bathroom in a huge respect. So pay attention. My advice would be, if you're looking for support or the plan, the details, look in your Virgo house, because that has been helping me to sort of see the details with more clarity while Saturn has been moving through Pisces.
Okay, because the T square is Mercury in Sagittarius opposing Jupiter in Gemini, and they're squaring the Saturn in Pisces, and then opposite, which is the releasing point, as you mentioned, is Virgo. I'm just trying to my Gemini. I have to use the hands, otherwise.
Thank you. I've been using the hands this whole time too.
Yeah, Mercury. No, that's so lovely. What a great, that's such a great piece of advice. I learned something. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Good reminder. I like that. Yeah, thank you so much, both of you. I really appreciate your time and insights and energy, and just your lovely personas. I really enjoyed chatting with you today about Mercury in Sagittarius. before we finish this, please tell my audience and everybody, what are you up to? Where can they find you? And I would put everything in the description, but still, if you have something going on, please go ahead. Diana?
So you can find me at dianavanessa.com. You can also find me on Instagram when I feel like posting content there. And you can find me more frequently on Threads. I am still on Threads. I haven't migrated to Blue Sky yet or any other source. I'm too fixed as the Leo third house to go anywhere else right now. But when the time comes, we'll see. But those are the main places. My website, dianavanessa.com, Instagram, and Threads. I'm also going to be, like I said, relaunching my Alchemizing with Astrology course that I did to good reviews over the summer. And so I'm really excited about working with people who are very beginner and talking about how I, as a Capricorn sun, work with placements. So it's really, I'm like, how do you work with your placements and alchemize them in that way? And so that's what I got going on. And thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Excellent. And don't forget to follow Diana on social media. Jay, what are you having? I know for Jay, I know she's active in many, many podcasts. So please mention everything. I know I want you to tell people yes, because
outside
you're
of
very
astrology.
yes, you're very active and I love it. And I like that about you. So please.
Before I do, it's so interesting, Diana, that you said migrating to Blue Sky. Migrating social media feels very Mercury and Sagittarius, just that word specifically.
I've been watching it happen in Threads, and I was like, wow, see the astrology happening in real time. Everyone's dropping their Blue Sky handles. And I was just like, oh, it feels like people are trying to figure out how to like do both, right? Or maybe just go to one or the other.
I never heard about this before now, so I'm gonna now research, because now you my Sunday is gone. Thank you both of you.
Well, and Blue Sky used to be this like invite only platform, and it's like opened its doors, so it's like expanding, But yeah, so you can find me on YouTube at Jasmin's Astrology. I'm not really on social media a lot anymore, so YouTube is the best way to come and hang out with me. But I do have a couple of other podcasts. If you like horror films, you can come and find me at Damn Fine TV. This is all YouTube. And then I recently launched a new podcast with a couple of friends. We are covering the Apple TV show Severance, but we also kind of make references to Twin Peaks because that's our favorite show as a group. So you can find us at Severance Peaks.
I think they're amazing. I love both shows. It was just amazing. So
that's thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. Both Jay and Diana have newsletters, so make sure you subscribe to the newsletters. They're very good, both of them, in different perspective, but very good. You can find me on YouTube and on Instagram. That's where I usually am. I Jasmin Abrosvik Astrology. I have a website if you want to book a reading or anything. And I'm going to put all of this down below in description. Thank you everybody for joining. And if you have
thanks for having us, Jasmina. This has been so much fun.
Oh, I loved it. I really enjoyed talking to both of you. I hope we can make it another day for another topic. That'll be lovely. And of course, for all of you, if you have any comments, please, and any questions, please let us know. And always subscribe, share, like. It means a lot. It spreads the world of astrology around the world, which is what the whole point of it is. All we want everybody to find the wisdom of magic of astrology, and we want to share it and spread it. I want everybody to have this astrology virus. That's going to be a new pandemic.
See, pandemic up for it, right?
Yeah. See,
the only good kind.
I know. It was a bad joke, but it's also Mercury in Sagittarius.
I would take that booster.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Have a great